5 haunted, medieval castles and the dark secrets they hold. What if I told you that behind the towering walls of Europe's most majestic castles lurk stories so terrifying they refuse to die? These castles were built to inspire awe, to guard kings and queens, to stand as symbols of power. Yet, within their halls and dungeons, shadows remain, whispers of betrayal, bloodshed, and restless souls that still wander long after the last torch went out. The Middle Ages were not only an era of knights and chivalry, they were also a time of cruelty, superstition, and secrets buried deep within stone walls. Every castle has its dark past, murders hidden from history, prisoners who never escaped, and curses carved into the very foundations. And while centuries have passed, some say the screams, the footsteps, and the cold touch of the dead can still be felt today. Tonight, we open the gates to these haunted strongholds. From echoing corridors where queens weep in the dark, to towers that imprisoned the condemned. 2 chambers where shadows still gather at midnight, these are not just legends, but lingering scars of history. So stay with me until the end, as we uncover 5 haunted medieval castles and the dark secrets they hold. But be warned, once you hear their stories, you may never look at castles the same way again. Castle 1, the Tower of London. Few places in the world are as soaked in blood and terror as the Tower of London. Built in the 11th century by William the Conqueror, the tower was never just a royal fortress. It was a prison, a place of torture, and for many, the final stop before death. Its stones echo with centuries of betrayal, execution, and restless souls who refuse to leave. The most famous of these is Anne Boleyn, the ill-fated queen and second wife of King Henry VIII, accused of adultery and treason. She was executed on Tower Green in 1536, but according to countless witnesses, her spirit never left. Guards and visitors alike claim to see her ghost wandering the grounds, sometimes headless, carrying her severed head in her arms. Her spectral figure is said to glide through the chapel of St. Peter ad Vincula, where her remains were hastily buried. She is not alone. The spirits of tortured prisoners are said to stalk the dungeons, where iron chains once clattered against the walls. The cries of the princes in the tower, young Edward V and his brother Richard, mysteriously murdered in the 15th century, are whispered to echo through the stone corridors. On stormy nights, their ghostly figures are reported peering from the windows of the White Tower, their faces pale with fear. Even the ravens, kept by tradition within the tower's walls, are tied to its supernatural lore. Legend warns that if the ravens ever leave, both the tower and the kingdom will fall. The Tower of London stands today as a symbol of history, power, and blood, but beneath its tourist facade lies an unshakable truth. Its shadows are crowded, its secrets are far from silent. Castle 2, Leap Castle. Ireland. Deep in the heart of Ireland stands Leap Castle, a fortress so steeped in blood and betrayal that it has earned the title of one of the most haunted castles in the world. Built in the 13th century, Leap Castle was more than a stronghold. It was a place where family turned against family, where ambition left a trail of corpses. One of the darkest chapters in its history is known as the Bloody Chapel. In the 16th century, the ruling O'Carroll clan was torn apart by a violent struggle for power. During Mass inside the castle's chapel, one brother drew his sword and struck down the priest, his own kin, before the altar. The priest's blood stained the floor, and it is said his spirit never left. To this day, visitors claim to hear ghostly chanting or see a dark figure lurking in the shadows of the ruined chapel. But Leap Castle's horrors do not end there. In the early 1900s, workers discovered an oubliette hidden dungeon behind a wall in the chapel. Inside, they found hundreds of human remains impaled on wooden spikes. Victims had been thrown into the pit and left to die slowly in agony. This gruesome discovery cemented the castle's reputation as a place of unending torment. Perhaps the most terrifying presence of all is known as the elemental, a malevolent spirit described as a decaying figure with rotting flesh and a stench of sulfur. Some believe it was conjured by dark rituals. Others say it is the embodiment of centuries of bloodshed. Those who encounter it are often overcome with dread, so intense that they flee the castle in terror. Even now, Leap Castle's crumbling halls and silent corridors breathe with the weight of its violent past. To step inside is to step into a place where death lingers in, where the dead still walk beside the living. Castle 3. Edinburgh Castle, Scotland, perched high upon Castle Rock. Overlooking the Scottish capital stands Edinburgh Castle, a fortress that has witnessed war, murder, and centuries of unrest. Its towering presence dominates the skyline. But within its ancient walls lies something far more chilling. A reputation as one of the most haunted places in Europe. For centuries, the castle served as both royal residence and prison. Countless men and women perished within its dungeons, often in conditions so brutal that death was considered a mercy. Prisoners of war from the 7 Years' War and the American Revolution were crammed into dark, airless chambers. Today, visitors claim to hear ghostly footsteps echoing through the vaults, accompanied by the faint clinking of chains. Among the castle's most famous apparitions is the headless drummer. First sighted in the 17th century, his spectral drumming was said to foretell disaster or invasion. Though no one knows his true identity, the echo of his phantom drumbeat has been reported by soldiers and visitors alike, always striking terror into those who hear it. Another chilling presence is that of a piper boy sent into the tunnels beneath the castle centuries ago. He was ordered to play his pipes so soldiers above could follow his path. But midway through, the music stopped abruptly, and the boy never returned. To this day, faint notes of bagpipes are said to drift from beneath the castle at night, a reminder of the child who vanished into the darkness. Even animals have not escaped the haunting. The castle's dog cemetery, where regimental mascots were buried, is believed to be stalked by phantom hounds, their barks echoing in the dead of night. Edinburgh Castle is not just Scotland's crown jewel, it is a fortress where history and the supernatural intertwine. Every stone seems to carry a memory, and every shadow a secret. For those who walk its halls after dark, the question remains, are you hearing history or the restless dead? Castle Furhauska. Castle, Czech Republic. Hidden deep in the forests north of Prague stands Hauska Castle, a fortress unlike any other in Europe. Unlike castles built to defend borders or guard kings, Hauska was constructed for one eerie purpose: to seal what locals believed was a gateway to hell. The legend begins with a bottomless pit that lay on the site long before the castle's foundations were laid. Villagers claimed winged, half-human creatures crawled out of the chasm at night, dragging livestock and, sometimes people, back into the darkness. Fearing this unholy portal, a local ruler ordered a stone fortress built directly over the pit in the 13th century. The castle's chapel was placed squarely above it, as if holy ground could hold back whatever lurked below. But before sealing the pit, the builders tested its depths. A condemned prisoner was offered freedom if he allowed himself to be lowered into the hole. Moments later, his screams filled the air. When he was pulled back up, he was no longer the same. His hair had turned white, his face withered like an old man, and his mind broken. He died days later, raving of monstrous hands clawing at him in the dark. Even after the castle rose, the hauntings continued. Guards reported shadows moving across the courtyard when no one was there. Unnatural screams echoed through the halls at night. Locals swore the ground around Hauska was colder than anywhere else, as though something beneath was still breathing. What makes Hauska Castle more sinister is its architecture. It has no defensive purpose. The windows are false, the walls face inward, and there are no fortifications against an outside enemy. It was not built to keep something out, but to keep something in. To this day, visitors describe overwhelming dread when standing in the chapel, directly above the sealed pit. Whether myth or truth, Hauska Castle endures as one of the most chilling reminders that some doors are never meant to be opened. Castle 5, Bran Castle. Romania. Few castles in the world inspire as much fascination and dread as Bran Castle. Perched high on a cliff in the Carpathian Mountains of Romania, known to many as Dracula's castle, its looming towers and Gothic architecture have become symbols of terror. But the legends tied to Bran run deeper than fiction. Though Bram Stoker never visited, his infamous novel Dracula drew heavily from stories of Vlad the Impaler, the bloodthirsty 15th century ruler whose cruelty shocked even his own allies. Vlad was known to impale his enemies on stakes, leaving their bodies to rot as warnings. Locals whispered that his spirit, twisted by violence, still wandered the fortress walls. Whether or not Vlad stayed at Bran is debated, but the shadow of his reputation forever binds the castle to the vampire myth. Yet Bran Castle's hauntings go beyond Dracula. Visitors often report cold spots and sudden, unexplained chills as they walk through its narrow staircases and hidden passages. Strange figures have been glimpsed drifting through the halls, monks, soldiers, and even the pale apparition of a woman in white. Her cries echo faintly, some say, in the dead of night. One of the castle's darkest secrets lies in its underground passages. Long before it became a tourist attraction, Bran was used as a fortress and prison. Prisoners were thrown into dungeons beneath the stone, left to suffer and die in silence. The despair of those souls is said to linger, clinging to the walls like shadows that never fade. Today, Bran Castle draws thousands of visitors, eager to touch a piece of Gothic legend. But for those who stay after dusk, the experience is far from romantic. Locals warn that the castle's torches flicker without wind, and that whispers drift through the corridors when no one is near. Whether haunted by Vlad, his victims, or something older still, Bran Castle remains a chilling reminder of how history and myth can bleed together into something immortal. From the blood-soaked stones of the Tower of London to the cursed halls of Leap Castle, from the haunted ramparts of Edinburgh Castle to the infernal pit beneath Hauska Castle, and finally, the Gothic shadows of Bran Castle, these fortresses remind us that castles were never only places of power and glory. They were also prisons, graveyards, and silent witnesses to betrayal, torture, and death. And with so much suffering etched into their walls, is it any wonder that their spirits refuse to rest? These are more than crumbling ruins or tourist attractions. Each is a living scar of the Middle Ages, carrying secrets that cannot be erased by time. The whispers in the corridors, the flicker of unseen shadows, the cold touch of dread, these hauntings are echoes of history itself. Perhaps they are warnings, reminders that cruelty leaves marks that even centuries cannot wash away. Or perhaps they are proof that some souls remain forever bound to the places where they suffered most. So the next time you gaze upon a medieval castle, remember, beneath the grandeur lies a darker truth. Behind every stone is a story of anguish, and in every shadow may linger something watching, waiting. If these tales of haunted castles and their secrets gripped you, don't let the journey end here. Like this video, share it with those who crave the dark side of history, and subscribe to the channel for more whispers from the forgotten corners of the past. The Middle Ages may be long gone, but its ghosts still walk among us.